I have to tell you that my family does not do well with the males. I am the only child, but I have a bunch of girl and boy cousins, and the girl cousins and I, we stay in school, we get interesting jobs, we take care of ourselves. But the boys, I would liken them to the same way we do our male dogs. Where the female dogs are sweet, loyal companions, long lived. The male dogs bite the postman, grab around people's legs, never housebroken, and eventually run off. Now, my favorite boy cousin was Bobby, and it is through him that I come to be in possession of one of Willie Nelson's braids. Bobby had had a hard time finding himself. He had dropped out of school, rode motorcycles, hitchhiked, worried his mother and me, until he finally came home to live with her. He washed out of one job and then another until he went to volunteer at the music festival and discovered the soundboard. Bobby had a natural gift. He loved sliding those little sliders up and down. He loved raising one instrument, turning down another, making the whole thing sound less tinny. Pretty soon, the big names at these festivals would only agree to play if Bobby ran their sound. 12 mics and piece of cake, a pickup for the dancer's feet, nothing. Bring up the singer. And he'd bring him up, but if he didn't like the way he sounded, he'd bring him right back down. Bobby worked the old-fashioned analog ones. He worked the new little dinky digital ones. He once bored me for half an afternoon on the 3 different ways to raise the volume and all the nuances thereof. And then Willie Nelson came to town. Willie's usual sound man went off on a tear, and he needed one at the last minute, and everybody in the local music community suggested Bobby. Bobby went, they were delighted with his work. They wanted him to come travel with them. He made them sound better than they had ever sounded. As Bobby said mystically, I shape sound. Soon he was working on their studio recordings away as well, and he just loved it. By the next summer, he had enough clout to get me tickets when Willie Nelson came back to town. And he even got me a room on the floor of the hotel reserved for staff. Now, I was in that room sort of getting ready to go when there was a pounding on the door, and there was Bobby. And he was waving around this hairy thing in his hand. And I went, ooh. And then I looked at it closely, and I saw it was a brown braid about 10, 11 inches long, had a few gray hairs. And I said, Bobby, it's not. And he said, it is, but I'm sorry. Why would you do this to Willie? You love Willie. I know. But they all got drunk and they passed out, flopped around the hotel room. And I had left my tool bag in there. And I went back in, and I needed the soldering iron really badly. And Willie was lying on the sofa, laid back, mouth open, snoring, and his braids were sort of flowing out to the side. And right there on the coffee table was the wire clipper. And I just pulled out one of those braids and I clipped it off. I can still hear those little hairs going through the blades. And you got to take it because my fingers are getting numb and I don't want this end to come unraveled. So I went, and from my travel kit, I got a little black elastic band. It matched the one on the other end. And I said, Bobby, you got to give it back. I said, no, they'll kill me. They're not going to kill you, fire you maybe. No, those roadies. Now, Willie himself was a sweet man, but he had the toughest looking roadies. Their biceps just bulged, their band t-shirts. They wore sunglasses even at night. They were a pretty tough looking group. I said, I'll flush it down the toilet. No, it's part of Willie. Let's burn it. No, that might catch Willie on fire. Now, I have to tell you that Bobby and I are both from New Orleans, and that burning thing, that sounded a little voodoo-y to us. He said, you got to hide it in your hair. Now, Willie and I were both considerably less gray then. It was not a bad match, and I looked at it and I said, is it clean? Oh, yeah, Willie washes his hair all the time. He's got this special shampoo. It's sandalwood patchouli. An old girlfriend made it for him. The one time I saw Willie mad was when somebody else used his shampoo. How could he tell? By the smell. So I was beginning to pick up on some of Bobby's panic. He said they would come and search our hotel rooms. They had keys to the whole floor since they had rented the whole floor, and we could not be found in the room with the braid. So my hair was really long and thick then, and I let it down and I separated it out to braid, and I put Willie's braid in one of mine, and then I braided it up really tight and I put it in a big figure 8 and clamped it with a barrette on the back of my head. And I said, we got to get out of here. We have to go down to breakfast. It will look suspicious. So Bobby and I left the hotel room, and then we walked towards the elevator. There were 2 security people standing, one on either side with their arms folded. And we smiled and nodded, and they nodded. And as we got into the elevator, I saw them both turn and sniff. That was that damn shampoo. We went down to the lobby, and there was another security guard scrutinizing everybody who came out, and we nodded. And as we passed by, he sniffed too. Said, we got to split up, Bobby. And Bobby ran out the front of the hotel, and I went down the hall to the free breakfast room. And there were 2 of Willie's band members in there. They waved. I think they were the harmonica player and the bassist. And they said, hi, where's Captain Reverb, which was their name for Bobby. It's some kind of music tech joke. And I said, oh, well, he's gone off to work. And they sniffed and they looked around. They were looking for Willie. So I grabbed a muffin really quick and I ran down the hall to the gift shop. And while the lady's back was turned, I took that free sample of lavender body spray and I just doused my hair. I didn't think even a bloodhound could have followed that braid now. I tightened it up, I tightened the barrette, and then I just had to wait out the day, just like Bobby. And I had told him whatever he saw, act surprised. Well, what's Willie gonna do? He said, that's his trademark hairstyle. And I unsympathetically said, well, you should have thought about that before you cut off one of his braids, shouldn't you? So evening came and I went down to the concert hall. Man, I had great tickets almost right in the front. And there was the opening band and the opening band and the opening band. And then finally, the curtains parted and they brought out Trigger, which is Willie Nelson's good old guitar, the one with the hole in it where the pick hits all the time. And everybody applauded. And then Willie came out and he began his iconic song, On the Road Again. And I felt something in the back of my hair and I turned around to see if the guy behind me was poking me, but he wasn't. And while my head was turned, I could still feel it. It was the braid. The braid was trying to get on the road again with Willie Nelson. And my whole bun was shaking back and forth. I am not much of a dancer, especially not in public, but boy, I had to rock out because I couldn't stand anybody behind me seeing my hair go one way and the rest of me go the other. And I was bobbing my head when the braid bobbed. And I think the people filming even got me in the camera because I looked like a fan who was really into the music. Happily, the next song was Georgia, which is a sweet, slow song. And the braid calmed down and just sort of shifted back and forth until Willie got to the line that says, other arms reach out to me. And that braid began reaching out to Willie Nelson. In fact, it reached so hard, it popped my barrette open. But that turned out not to be a bad thing. My whole braid with Willie's in it came tumbling down. But it looks much closer to normal to clutch your braid through a concert than it does to have your hands on the back of your head. And I looked hard at Willie. He had a bandana on, a little different style than usual. It was tied across his forehead and tied in the back. They probably did some real creative parting of his hair because the braids maybe looked a little thin, but you couldn't really tell. I stayed all through the concert, swaying, grabbing my braid, and happily it was finally over. I think it was a good concert. I don't really remember. I looked for my cousin Bobby afterwards, but he had split as soon as it was over. He got his clothes bag, he got his tool bag, and he left. He didn't even tell me goodbye. If he had, I might have insisted that he take custody of the braid. Willie's group didn't know where he'd gone. He even wrote to Bobby's mother asking if she knew where he was. She gets letters occasionally. He's hitchhiking and riding motorcycles and worrying her. I think he works in little small time music festivals and gets paid under the table. I still have the braid. It's in my scarf drawer. Now, the sandalwood has won the battle between the patchouli and the lavender. And so when I open the drawer, I get a little whiff of sandalwood. I don't tease it. I don't play Willie Nelson's music for it. I'm pretty sure it has lost its connection to him. But if it hasn't, I don't want to see it. I keep the braid in an envelope with Bobby's postcards. And they come from all around and they say, do you still have it? I still haven't decided what to do with it. The last one came from out west somewhere, postage due. I really want to do something with this braid. I thought about mailing it back to Willie, but what does he need 3 braids for? But on the other hand, when his hair begins to thin, he could make a little toupee or maybe a hairpiece. I can just picture he and his roadies scanning eBay to see if anybody's trying to flog Willie Nelson's braid. Or maybe they watch Antiques Roadshow to see if anybody brings on the braid for valuation someday. I have a little sweet dog now, a female I got from the shelter. She's calm and placid. She'll go fetch a ball maybe 3 times just to humor me. Sometimes I wonder if one of her brothers might not have been more fun. But I really want to give the braid back. So I'm thinking, there are so many of you here from Texas. If any of you know him, put him in touch with me. I'm ready to be done with this. Thank you.